Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, haven't shared it too many times, but one of the biggest epiphanies that I've ever had in my life was the first day that I started reading personal development, entrepreneurship, business books. And the day that I started reading those books, that was the day when my life changed. And ever since then, I've never stopped. So I've compiled the top 30 books and also the top 30 success quotes that every man must live by in a simple guide. You can download it for free at kfmfree.com. Again, that's kfmfree.com to really start growing in every aspect of your life. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Tucker Max, author of 3 New York Times bestselling authors and CEO of Book in a Box. Tucker, happy to have you here on the show.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, Tucker, so we start off every show with some sort of success quote or some sort of saying that the guest has lived by, something that you're working on now. Share with us what you got and what that means to you.
You want me to give you a quote? Like something I live, so something I said or something someone else said?
Well, you can do whatever. Some people quote themselves, or some people quote the philosophers or the successful people.
Oh man, that's good. I feel like there's a lot of quotes.
Something recent for you. How about that?
Man. All right. Well, so actually today I was talking to somebody and I was really kind of getting deep into some sort of issues of mine and some problems. And she basically was like, look, why don't you just every single day give yourself, at the end of the day, write down one example of you working your process and one example of how you're making it not about you, making it about other people. And I was like, ugh, it's so good. It's so simple, but it's so effective. At least for me, where I am in my life, those are the two things that I really have to focus on. Because I have to focus on working the process because I have so many opportunities in front of me and so many things I could do and so much that I find interesting that I quite literally don't have enough life for all the things that I would like to do. So I've got to focus and really work on the things that are most important and then I've got to work those things each day the way I know how to do. And then also I've seen a pretty clear trend in my life. The more I make it about me, the less I succeed. And the more I make it about everyone, about us, not just blindly giving, but understanding that I am one part of a group, whether it's my company or my family or my set of friends or whatever, then usually if I look at it from that context, I make the right decisions, both for me and for the group.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like those, I've learned, man, as I've gotten older, that life is actually not complicated. It's very simple to understand, but it's hard to do. A lot of people try and make it really complex, but it's not. It's just simple but hard.
What's an example of that? Like, what are you referring to right now?
The two things I just talked about. That,
Okay.
let's say, so many people ultimately they're looking for, they're looking for meaning and purpose in their life. They're trying to understand what it is that they're trying to do or accomplish.
Right.
And it took me about 35 to 38 years to realize the answer to that is actually really, really simple. There's only 2 things that matter in life, and you could almost reduce them down to 1, but I like to keep them separate. The 2 things that matter are the relationships you have with the people that you love, and the other thing that matters is the things that you do that matter to those people in the world, right? So it's the relationships you have and the work you do, and that's it. And it's really easy to get lost in so much other stuff and to think about everything else. But if for everything you do, if you stop and ask yourself, is this building or developing a relationship with someone I care about? Or is this contributing to work I'm doing that matters to me or the world? And if the answer to both is no, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. And if the answer is yes to at least one of the questions, if not both, then it's probably something you should be doing.
Yeah. And there's often that you hear the top 5 regrets of the dying. And I think like number 1 is I wish I had spent more time with the people that I loved, or I wish I had told the people I loved that I loved them. Often a big regret. With the second one, you said, like, does your work matter to me and the world? What if your work only matters to you? Like, what if you're doing it just for you?
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not sure how you're going to support yourself if you only do work that matters to you. You know, like, listen, if you had parents who had a ton of money and they left you with a bunch of money and you were blessed with that and you don't need to work, great. Then it's cool to sit there and play video games all day if that's all you want to do. I've never been one of those people who judge that, like, oh, you have to save the world or you're worthless. That's total bullshit. I hate that.
Right.
But at the same time, what you need to understand, most people are not in that situation. Most people need to earn a living, right? And the way you earn a living is by helping other people. And I know it sounds crazy when you think about, no, I got to make money. But believe it or not, the vast majority of ways you make money, and usually almost always the best ways to make money, not always, but almost always, involve actually helping other people you want to make money. What you do as an entrepreneur is you solve someone's problem, especially a problem that is expensive that people will pay you for. If you do that, you're going to make money. And if you solve a problem that a lot of people have and that's very expensive for them, you're going to make a lot of money and you'll deserve it.
Right. Yeah. You often hear if you want to make $1 billion, help 1 billion people.
Yeah.
It almost seems like these are actually very much intertwined. You're talking about like having really powerful relationships, and then in order to make, a living, like you're going to have to help other people. So it almost seems like these go together, because the relationships that you develop with people, those people will want to support and help you.
Yeah. It's weird, man. They're very much tied together. I don't know many people who are really successful who don't have a lot of good relationships. Now, don't get me wrong. They exist. Like, I don't know if you watch the TV show Billions, but there are a lot of people in finance who are total monsters and who don't have good relationships and who basically are extractive. There are still industries where you can be extractive, where you can essentially be, I don't want to say a thief, but it's not about relationships. It's just about making money independent. Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, those places exist, but there's less and less of them. And it's harder and harder to be an awful person and to be totally selfish and self-centered and succeed.
Yeah. So this is pretty profound stuff. And I love when people can take something complex and make it simple, because it is something that we wrestle with and talk a lot about extensively on the show, finding your purpose. Like, what is this purpose thing? Like, what are we going to do here the short time that we're going to be on this earth? Now, could you picture yourself saying this? Just talking about relationships, talking about businesses, helping people. If we were to step back 20 years ago?
20 years ago, I would have been 20. I was a retard at 20, man.
When did you write your first book? It was...
I was 27. I hope this is beer in hell. Actually, if I finished it at 28 or 29. Yeah. And I was pretty stupid then, to be honest, dude.
Well, you wrote a really good book.
No, I did. Well, I shouldn't... Stupid's the wrong word. Obviously, I was intellectually smart. What I was... at 20, so I'm emotionally immature for my age. Like, my wife is 30 years old. She's 10 years younger than me, and we're about the same emotional age. So, some guys develop quickly emotionally, and some guys develop slowly. I think I was one of the ones that developed slowly. And also, a lot of people conflate intellectual intelligence with emotional intelligence. I was obviously very smart as a young guy, but I was intellectually, but I was very stupid emotionally. And I was just very disconnected from myself and my emotions in a lot of ways. And a lot of people want to judge that, but that's whatever. That's who I was and that's where I was. And I made the most of it for who and where I was. But obviously, it wasn't ultimately fulfilling, dude. Because I'll tell you, it boils down to this, man. I wrote iconic books that sold millions and millions of copies.
Right.
And I made a lot of money, and I hooked up with a lot of girls, and I got pretty fucking famous, and I did all the things that everyone thinks that they want. And I did them, and I got them. And I looked up one day when I was about 34 or 35, and I realized I had 10 times more than I ever thought I would need to be happy, and I wasn't that happy. I mean, I wasn't depressed. Make no mistake about it, being rich is always better than being poor.
Right.
Being successful is always better than being a failure. Like, I was better off in most ways, but I still wasn't, I was only a little bit different emotionally, and not profoundly different. And so then at that point, that was 34, 35, I really went on a kick of like, all right, I'm going to fix everything in my life. So I started with everything external. Like, I got in amazing shape and I ate well and I slept well. Like, I had the most amazing life habits you could have. And I was in such good health. My doctor was like, I can't even believe your blood test results. You have the lipid levels of like a 10-year-old. This is amazing. And I felt better and it was great, but I still wasn't, there was still something missing. And so I kind of had to really look inward, man. I mean, if you've got everything you think you want and everything's quote perfect and you're still not happy, then the problem is inside. It's not outside. And that was the realization that it took me a long, long time, about 35 or more years to figure out, dude.
Yeah, so here you are. You wrote these iconic books, Assholes Finished First, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, Sloppy Seconds. I mean, a number of great, entertaining books here. And you sold millions of books, and you're widely popular, especially amongst female and women. And you're finding yourself in this place where there's lacking fulfillment. So you start working on yourself, your health, you start improving that aspect. But what were the steps you took to really get that fulfillment in your life beyond working on your health?
So it was the two things I told you about, what life boils down to. It was understanding that relation. So it wasn't just one day I woke up and I said, okay, I understand relationships are the most important thing. And
Come on.
No.
You didn't just journal that?
Like I said, man, it sounds simple and it is, but getting to that point is immensely hard work. So basically, once I kind of came to the realization that everything was fixed and I wasn't very happy, or I wasn't as happy as I wanted to be, then and I realized it's got to be coming from inside. So at that point, it means you've got to start working on yourself, your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings and those sorts of things. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And I chose psychoanalysis, which is a form of talk therapy, it's going to a therapist. And there's a lot of different therapists you can go to. I chose that. And I also chose, from there, I kind of added on meditation, which worked really well for me. Those two things, psychoanalysis and meditation, were really great for me combined. And they really forced me to see a lot of things about myself and about my emotions, about my past and whatever, that were hard to deal with. But once I faced those things that were painful, and then you never really eliminate them, you just kind of recognize pain and trauma and you deal with it, and then you let it have its say, and then you realize it's a part of you, then you're able to go forward with it, right? The real problems everyone has are the problems you don't recognize, right? And so from there, then I could start having, I'll give you a great example that'll apply, that's very specific, that'll apply to your audience. So how did I meet my wife, right? So a lot of people oh, you just become an awesome guy and then women come to you. Well, I kind of had that actually. I had a lot of women coming to me after my books, and I hooked up with God knows how many. And I'm not going to pretend like that was bad or something. It was pretty cool. There's
right.
No dude,
I don't think guys have.
No honest guy is ever going to say, "Oh man, I can't believe all these hot women were coming to me to sleep with me. This is such torture."
Yeah, right. You're talking to your psychoanalyst, your psychologist.
No, listen, it's cool. Right. But here's the crazy thing, man, is that eventually it gets kind of boring and it gets tedious and it gets unfulfilling. It's sort of think of it like all the criticisms that people might have of McDonald's, no one ever says it's not delicious. It might be unhealthy and it might be bad for you in the long run. It might hurt the environment or what the hell ever. But no one says, well, and it's also not even very good. That's bullshit. McDonald's, it's literally designed and engineered to be as delicious. It overrides your brain, and it's so delicious your brain can't even deal with it. You become an addict, right? And so hooking up with tons and tons of girls is sort of like McDonald's, dude. It's really delicious when you're eating it, and it'll keep you alive for a while. It'll drive you for quite a while, and you can become addicted to it. And I don't mean addiction in the sense of a drug addict. I just mean it's just really amazing. And if you've been starving your whole life and then you move into a McDonald's, you're just going to eat until you throw up for weeks,
Right.
But then eventually you get tired of that and you want something else, right? And so I reached that part with my life where, here's the thing, man, a lot of hooking up with a lot of girls physically is awesome and socially can be awesome, but emotionally and in terms of relationships, it actually is draining because you're never really connecting with anybody and you're never feeling anything really kind of beyond your nut, you know? Like you're getting laid is awesome, but there are other things that are awesome too. As a 25-year-old guy, I didn't care. As a 35-year-old guy, it actually mattered a lot to me. And so one's not right or wrong. It's just different things are right at different times. So then at that point, I had to think, all right, how do I meet a woman? First, I had to decide, okay, I'm ready to meet a woman and have a serious relationship and kind of connect with her emotionally. And then I was probably long past ready when I kind of made that decision. And then I had to be like, okay, well, how do I meet this woman, right? And it was funny. Talking to my analyst, actually, I was like complaining to her. I was frustrated about how none of the girls I met were like kind of dateable or none of them really wanted to have relationships or they weren't types I wanted to have relationships with. And so my analyst kind of just asked me a very simple question. She's like, well, how are you meeting these women? I realized I was meeting women the same way I had been for a decade. Which
was what?
Which was like either letting women coming to me because they'd read my books and they wanted to hook up, or me going to bars or going to places where there are women looking for short-term relationships and hookups, which is great if that's what you're looking for. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was looking for something more. So it's like if I was looking for healthy food, standing in line at McDonald's looking at the menu being like, what the hell am I going to eat? Right. Well, it's like, dude, you're at the wrong fucking restaurant. You know, you need to go to Whole Foods.
Right. I've had Jeffrey Miller here on the show, and you guys did a collaboration with Mate, right? You guys...
Yeah.
Is this where that book came from? Was your path to finding like the right woman, not just a hookup?
Right. So part of it is both. The collaboration with the book is very much Mate. What Mate is kind of the guide that you wish you had when you were 16, or that you want if you're that age, or 22 or 25. And it teaches you what women want and how to understand women so you can get girls regardless of what it is you're looking for. Whether you're looking for short-term or medium-term or long-term, women basically at their core want the same thing from guys. It's a little bit different with short-term and long-term, but it's really truly not fundamentally different. I'm a great example of that. I really optimized myself for short-term mating for more than a decade, and I got really good at it. And then when I kind of shifted to long-term, looking for more long-term relationships, I actually had problems getting the girls, man. Like, not problems
because you were optimized for the short term.
For short term, right?
That's what you were attracting.
Right. Well, I was looking for and attracting girls who were looking for short-term stuff. So I had to totally change my mindset. And here's what I'll tell you exactly how my analyst and I worked through this. Basically, I made a list of all the things I wanted in a woman, like a girlfriend or wife. And the list was like, it was almost like a teenage girl. It was ridiculous. It was like this, seriously, it was like this long
pictures. List. Did you cut out pictures from magazines?
No. I did not make
Step your game up.
But I had a long list of like 50 things.
Yeah.
So she looked at the list.
That is a long list.
It's ridiculous. And she looked at me and she's like, is there any woman that's all these 50 things? And I started laughing. I was like, no, of course not. So we eventually narrowed it down to 3 core things that truly mattered.
Okay.
And then 3 things that would be nice to have.
Bonus. What were the 3?
The 3 things that mattered the most were she's got to be really, really smart, because I learned that early on. I just can't deal with dumb women. She's got to... I can't deal with it, man.
Do you ever give them hope? Like, do you ever like, oh, she's in school, maybe it'll help her? You can tell right off the bat.
People are who they are, man.
All right, number 1, really
Number 1,
smart.
she's got to be like ruthlessly intelligent.
Yeah.
Number 2 is she's got to be really sweet and caring, compassionate, like a genuinely kind, loving person. Number 2, sorry. And then number 3 is I've got to think she's really hot. You know, like, I'm not going to pretend that physical attraction doesn't matter. That's total bullshit.
It's evolutionary. I think, you worked with Jeffrey Miller. I thought it was a great combination of your background and then Jeffrey Miller being an evolutionary psychologist, kind of taking, I felt like you're more like, you've been out there in the fields, in the streets, and then Jeffrey's done the science and the research and that collaboration. I read the book when it first came out, and it was, again, you took something very complex and made it very simple. And it answers like every question that you could think of.
Yeah, that was the point, man. So after I nailed those 3 things, man, the other the 3
were the bonus.
The 3 bonus ones were like, I'd really like it if she had her own thing, like she was like an entrepreneur, or she just had something in her life that was like major. Like, I didn't really want a woman who just wanted to be a wife and mom and nothing else. There's nothing wrong with that. but I wanted someone who was ambitious too, hopefully. I also wanted someone who was into like healthy, like paleo living, CrossFit, that kind of stuff, hopefully. And then I wanted someone who had a sex drive that was at least similar to mine, if not higher. Because like a woman who doesn't want to have sex would be a major problem with me because I have a pretty high sex drive. So those
were those bonus ones actually the real three, and then the psychologist was like, "Hey, we should switch these."
No.
Okay, just kidding.
The first three were the most important.
Right.
The other three, depending on how far off they were from me, they were sort of like they could be a little bit off, and it could still work. But she couldn't be kind of smart but not really, or kind of sweet but not really. Like that wouldn't work, you know?
Yeah.
They were the true non-negotiables. So anyway, then my analyst was like, okay, where are these women? What do they do? And so I made a list of like 20 things that women that were like that did in their life, right? Either jobs they had or activities or charities they volunteered for, anything. And then she asked me another very simple question. What of these 20 things are you doing? And I looked at the list and I realized that there was literally zero overlap. And I was like, oh, I feel so stupid. Because so many of the things were really simple. Like, you know, I work out, right? But I work out on my own. Like, I don't need to go to a gym or go to a trainer or do, you know, some group activity. Like, I know how to lift fucking weights. But
right.
But here's the thing. If I want to meet a woman who's smart and healthy and active, CrossFit is a great place to do it. And I could just as easily go to CrossFit as I could go to a gym and deadlift on my own. So there were about 5 things on that list of 20 that were things I actually liked and I wanted to do. So I started doing those 5 things. And then 6 months later, through CrossFit, not actually in my class, it was through my coach of my class, she worked out with my wife. They trained together because they both went to the CrossFit games. And my CrossFit coach introduced me to the woman who ended up becoming my wife. And of course, she was big in it. She was everything I wanted.
Did you know right away? Like, she's like, hey, this is, and then you're like, boom, I've been looking for you.
No, I wish, dude. Wouldn't life be great if like the person you're supposed to be with or a person you could be with had like a fucking marker on their head or something as soon as you saw it, you knew?
Or just like a sign.
Right,
with
exactly.
your name on it. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be great, yeah. That's a big problem that maybe we could solve, and that could be the next business.
You know, I don't know how to solve that at scale. I know how I solved it for myself. Well, actually, that brings up a funny point. You started this off with asking about a quote that I live by.
Yeah.
Here's just made me think of a big quote I live by, which is, it's not enough to read the Buddha's words, you have to walk the Buddha's path.
Yeah,
And what that quote means is that learning everything you can about something doesn't help if you don't use that learning to actually do stuff, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, like I wrote the book, Jeff Miller and I wrote the book on how to get women. And a lot of guys read it and then took action. And we get emails every day from those guys talking about how, oh my God, changed my life. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And then other guys like will write us email and be like, I don't know, man, it's not really working. And then simple questions basically break down the fact that they haven't done anything. They've just read the book and they didn't actually do any of the stuff in there.
It's like reading a martial arts book and thinking that you know how to fight. You're like, you're going to sign up for the UFC. Like, dude, I read all the books by the Gracies. Like, I'm good.
or even better, like watching every pay-per-view UFC.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
Seen all of Anderson Silva's fights. I don't know why I keep getting my ass.
Right.
Well, have you thrown a punch? No. Well, hello.
Yeah, knowing is not enough. It's like you got to do it. This sounds like a Bruce Lee quote or something.
It's true. Martial arts are the perfect example of that because it's so stark and so clear.
Right.
But dating and women are a really great way where there's a massive disconnect, where most guys, everyone gets it with fighting, but no one gets it with women. And then as soon as you say it, most guys are like, oh shit, yeah, that's obvious. But they don't really, think about it, dude. I'm telling you a story right now about how I'm literally famous for hooking up with women. And when it came time to meet a woman that I wanted to date and marry, I couldn't fucking do it. I was failing at it. And it was just it's not like I wasn't taking action. I was just taking the wrong action over and over. And I wasn't thinking that through and realizing, oh, wow, I've got to actually understand first what I want and then line up my actions to get what I want.
Yeah. putting that all together. And I think that's just, it's got to hit home with everything, even business. Like if someone's reading all these entrepreneur books, not taking action, same thing there.
I see that all the time, dude. It's so common that it's almost like a joke. I would say 80% of the people that I meet that have quote business or entrepreneurial problems don't actually have entrepreneurial problems. They have action problems.
They have action problems.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And it's something I'm working on right now, which is my next book is on overcoming procrastination, laziness, and being able to take risk and take action. Coming back to you though, so you're struggling here. You left us here. Like you see the girl that you have now married. What happens next? Like, do you just awkwardly say, I'm Tucker? Like, does she look you up and go, oh, I'm running away from this guy? Like, how are you going to attract the girl on your main three when she Googles your name?
Okay, so this is pretty funny. So I was supposed to meet her. I met her like 6 or 9 months after I started CrossFit. I was supposed to meet her like 2 or 3 months after I started CrossFit because my coach knew immediately that we were right for each other. But she told Veronica, I met this guy I want you to meet. His name's Tucker. She said, it's Tucker Max. And Veronica's like, who's that? And so that's my wife's name, Veronica. Okay. And so my coach, Jen, says, just Google him. And so, which is probably not the right way to introduce me to someone who doesn't know who I am. So she Googles me and she's like, Jen, why the fuck would you want to set me up with this guy who calls himself an asshole? And Jen's like, no. You're really actually going to like him. Trust me, blah, blah. So she actually puts her off for like three months or maybe 6 months. And eventually, like, Veronica was like stuck at home one night and like she was supposed to go on a date and it canceled on her or something. And so Jen called her up and she's like, yeah, I'll come out and have drinks with you and your asshole friend. At least he'll be entertaining if he's an asshole, right? Because she didn't even read the stories, which was kind of funny. So we meet out and then, I mean, she's pretty. I was attracted to her, but like, I didn't think she's very standoffish at first. She's kind of slow to warm up. And so I wasn't even sure if I liked her, but what I thought was cool was that she was a nurse practitioner, so she was smart, and she had her own business, and so that means she was motivated and really kind of a go-getter, and she was super into paleo, and she was like a lot of the things that I wanted, and seemed like a very sweet, nice, kind person, but kind of suspicious of me. And so I honestly, man, I did what I do with everyone. This is advice in mate. This is what I tell every guy to do. And I did it. I just started asking her questions, and I started trying to understand her. And it was funny, man. I have a talent for really getting into people and really kind of like asking the questions that they won't ask themselves. And so she kind of got anxious. Like I was just asking her basic questions about why decisions she'd made in her life and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't even being judgmental. I was just, like we got into her relationship with her dad. We got into why she moved to Austin. We got into why she was a nurse instead of a doctor. And I didn't have an opinion about any of these things. I just asked enough questions. I found kind of everyone has weak spots and soft spots and things the hard truths that they don't like to recognize about themselves. So she kind of like, we ended the night and I didn't think she liked me at all. I wasn't even sure how much I liked her, but I probably at that point, I pretty definitely liked her more than she liked me. And so she had my number and then I called her up, I think, or emailed her. And we decided to get dinner again, like a week from then. So we had dinner, we're going to dinner, and then during dinner, kind of like the first half hour was kind of not tense, but a little bit awkward, And then she, from her part, not from mine. And then here's what's crazy. So she said something to me, literally I've never heard a woman say in 37, whatever years of dealing with women. She's like, I thought a lot about what the questions you asked me last week and how they made me feel. She was visibly kind of anxious and awkward, like as I was asking her these questions. And she's like, I've got a few issues in my life that, with my dad and some other things that I knew were there. And I decided to put off and decided not to deal with. And your questions really kind of made me see that those issues are still there and that I should probably deal with them. She's like, I know and you told me you were in therapy. If you know a good therapist or recommendation, I'd love one because I think I'm going to start really kind of working on these things. And dude, I was fucking blown away. Like you're a young guy, so you probably don't quite have a lot of experience with women. I'll tell you from experience, it is breathtakingly rare to find a man or a woman who's ever willing to like recognize their issues and like start to work on them in an honest, authentic way and then ask for help. Dude, that never fucking happens, ever. It took me 5 or 10 years of people telling me I needed help, and friends telling me in a loving way and being right about it before I recognized it to myself. And even then, it took me 6 months to actually get the courage to go to a fucking therapist and start actually doing work, man. It's really hard. And in one conversation, she not only had the vision to see it, but the courage to make the leap. I was like, man, this woman is like a baller. She's like, I was super fucking impressed with her. And then from that point, the conversation was like kind of amazing, and it really opened up. And then here's another thing too that was weird, man. A lot of girls, young guys especially, and girls, you get this vision in your head that like love should be like lustful and like stars should go off or fireworks. It should be like this sort of intensity. I'll tell you, man, it was never intense with us like that. It was like the difference between like, imagine like the best soup you've ever had, you know? No, seriously, like the best, because if it's amazing like a bisque or a soup, it's got a depth of flavor that at first it doesn't pop in your mouth. But you know, like the more you eat it, the more you realize, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you become kind of obsessed with it because it's so deep and rich and it has all these levels of flavor. And it's like, if I could eat this the rest of my life, I would, you know? Compare that to like Pop Rocks, you know? Like Pop Rocks, like are amazing. They explode in your mouth right away, right? But then they're fucking gone. It's just like this empty nonsense.
That's a great analogy.
I think that most young people look at love like they think it's supposed to be like Pop Rocks, right? That's not love. That's just lust or obsession, which is, I'll tell you, when you're young, being really obsessed with somebody or being really into somebody is actually kind of cool. And I would never tell someone not to do that. But I will tell you that after you've done that a few times and you realize that lust almost never corresponds to love, sometimes it does, but usually it doesn't, then what you start to look for is you look for that thing that may not knock you off your socks immediately, but you like, and that the more you get of it, the more you like it, until like it becomes something where you're shocked by how deep it is and how much depth it has. That's what we had. And she was one of the first women I've ever had that with in my life.
That's a big point. That's a big point. Like, I think some guys might feel like, hey, if it's not Pop Rocks, as you're saying, then, you know, there's something missing here. Like, this isn't right. Maybe as if love should always be Pop Rocks. Like, that's how the relationship should always be.
Right. I'll tell you, short hookups should generally be Pop Rocks. You know, like you should be really attracted to her and she should be really into you. And that's hookups. And sometimes hookups can turn into long-term relationships. They really can. Like people who say that that can't happen are fucking idiots. That's totally
right.
But for most people, longer-term relationships start slower because it takes a while to get to know somebody and to open up to them. People who are emotionally healthy don't open up super quick. No, they don't open up too slow either. If it takes you 6 months just to say, I like you or something, then you've got the opposite problem. But in my experience, short-term stuff tends to be Pop Rocks because you have a physical, like either a deep physical connection or there's just something about that person that kind of strikes your fancy. Like, oh man, that girl's got great tits. Or the guy's like, oh, that guy's so tall or whatever, you know?
Pop Rocks could be like more on the evolutionary side where you're just trying to like, boom, like have sex. Like that's like your drive telling you to have sex.
It's true, man. Like if you're in the short-term mating mindset, you tend to overvalue physical features, physical characteristics, or you tend to overvalue singular characteristics, right? Whereas if you're in a more stable, longer-term mindset, you tend to value how great will they be in bed versus how great of a partner will they be. They're not the same thing. You see?
Yeah. Putting those together. Right. And so we've gone through, looking back at your career and then going into where you are now. And then now you do the book in the box thing. And that seems to be like the exciting thing that you're working on right now.
Yep.
I saw you speak at Thrive in Las Vegas, where that was the first time I was like, oh, he's doing books. And then I thought about it and I was like, actually, that makes sense. He's got a lot of books that he's done. He probably knows the industry really well.
Yeah. So the company kind of started by accident, but basically what it does is we turn ideas into books. We have a process where if you've got a great idea in your head, you've got knowledge and wisdom to share with people, we can turn your idea into a book. All it takes is about 15 to 20 hours of your time on the phone over the course of about 5 to 6 months. and we position your book, we structure it, we outline it, we interview you to get everything out of your head, and then we transcribe it, and then we edit it into book prose.
And this
So
is a good book.
Oh, of course, dude.
This is a good book. Like this is
no, we
is
do.
this a
we don't
40-page ebook or
no. Don't talk nonsense. Like our pages, our books tend to be 150 to 200 pages, 50 to 75,000 words. Our clients are like Fortune 500 CEOs, entrepreneurs, high-level coaches and consultants. We've done a couple actors and actresses, some sports people, different types of sports, people like that. People who have done stuff, because our service is expensive, dude. It's $20,000. That's the kind of the base package, and then the expensive one's $50,000.
Yeah, I was looking at that. And so
right,
is it self-published, or are you guys actually partnered with a publisher, or what?
Yeah, so we actually have both. So all the books are published on my imprint. It's called Lioncrest Publishing. And we have a distribution deal with Simon & Schuster. Not all books, in fact, very few books get into bookstores, because the only thing that determines whether a book gets into bookstores is whether Barnes & Noble wants to cover it. And they only want to, or stock it, sorry. And they only want to stock books that have sold. So we've put 2 books into B&N, but those sold like 25, 30,000 copies. So we can get them in. But honestly, for most of our clients, getting into Barnes & Noble is, first off, man, only about 20% of books are, maybe less now, are sold in bookstores. It's actually a really small part of the market. And most of our clients, it just doesn't benefit them. It's just kind of an ego thing.
Yeah. My friend told me about this new bookstore that's like crushing it in New York, where you go in and you don't buy, everything is like a display. And there's like computers, and you could like search the library, and then when you want to order it, they print the book right there in front of you and give it to you. So they can carry every book possible that you could imagine. They have like unlimited supply of books, and they could print books on demand. It was
any book?
I don't know any book in the world, but they don't have any inventory basically.
Huh.
It was really interesting. You said they were like blowing up. Damn, I wish I had the name, but I'm sure we could go to the Googles and find that. But
yeah.
All right. So this is a good look at kind of what you're working on now. And you seem really excited about the work you're doing with Book in a Box. And it's relatively new, and it's doing quite well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's doing really well. We've been around about 18 months. We've done, I think, 230 or 240 books.
At 25K or 20K minimum.
No, we didn't. I wish, man. We didn't start at 20K. I think we started at 10 grand, actually. We quickly raised our price. So we've done about 3.5 million in revenue. So like our early clients all got in way cheaper than current clients. But the process is a lot better now. So
I have 3 self-published books, and I love self-publishing. I think it's just amazing how I can get on Kindle, I could do CreateSpace, and I could do ACX with Audible. It's amazing. I love it. What are you finding for your clients is like, why do they want a book? Is it branding? Are they trying to make money from the books? Or is it like trying to upsell something on the back end? Like, what is the purpose of books these days?
We have a few people like that, the sort of information marketers, where a book is like a lead gen to a product or something. That's not really most of our clients. Most of our clients are people who are serious thought leaders, or they're trying to become thought leaders or well-known in their space. And so a book is sort of a way for them. It's kind of the ultimate business card for most people, or the ultimate marketing material. Like if you're a C-level executive and you want to kind of move up and be considered as a CEO at a company, and you have a book that's really important in your field, that's a big separator. If you're a high-level coach or consultant and you have a book that kind of shows how smart you are and shows what you know, you're going to get a lot more clients, and you're going to be able to charge more, and you're going to get a lot more sort of status and prestige. If you want to be a speaker, like you want people to pay you 10, 20 grand to come speak, it's almost impossible to do that without a book now.
Yeah.
I mean, a book has become almost like the way that maybe a PhD or a college degree used to be a really big signal of credibility and status, maybe 30 years ago. And now it kind of doesn't anymore because everyone has one.
Yeah.
I think a book is kind of moving into that space.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that kind of comparison before, but I could totally see it, because people who read your book, they're already sold on you.
Yeah,
They're already sold on you because they read your book, and they know you were vulnerable in the book. You shared your lessons. It's like, wow, you're able to explain it very clearly in a book. And by the time you're on the phone with them, they're excited. They want to do something with you.
Exactly. And the thing is, too, with the book is that you can't hide, man. If you're an idiot, then your book is going to be stupid, and people are going to see that, So it's you can fake your way through Harvard. Like if you came from a rich family or from an old money family and you got into Harvard, like everyone graduates from Harvard once you get in, So like you could go to Harvard and be a moron, but it's really, really hard to write a great book and be a moron, you know? And you definitely can't do it with our process, because our process, we don't ghostwrite. We don't put any content in the books. We use your ideas and your words, man, and your voice. Whereas a ghostwriter, you're hiring someone to kind of to do your thing for you.
Creative for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, great. Let's dive into the knowledge round. Just gonna ask you a few more rapid fire questions here. So Tucker, you ready for the knowledge round?
I'm ready, man.
If you want to grow to the highest levels that you've ever been at in your life, go to kfmfree.com and you can download the top 30 books and success quotes that every man must live by. Every guy should read. If you want to grow, if you want to achieve greatness in life, you're going to have to read and surround yourself with the greatest minds of the world. So I've done all of the hard work for you. I've read hundreds of books. I've listened to hundreds of audiobooks. I've gone through and found the best quotes that you'll need to succeed and thrive and grow and become the man that you want to be. So go to kfmfree.com and I'll send it to you right now. kfmfree.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. So from looking at your career, I'm sensing just a sense of purpose. Like even when you were doing the whole I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, to where you working on The Mate with Jeffrey Miller, to where you are now, Book in a Box, there's like a sense of purpose and meaning with what you're doing. What advice would you give to someone who is feeling really lost and they're not sure what type of work they want to do? So kind of like the number 2, you talked about number 1, relationships, number 2, the work you do. How do you find like that work?
Okay, it's a great question. I think most people, young people especially, think that they have to they should just know what their purpose is. And if they don't, they feel lost. And that's because you've gotten really stupid advice your whole life and it's not your fault. The problem is you don't find your purpose, and your purpose doesn't just come to you magically. What you do is you make your purpose, right? And the way you make your purpose is you try a lot of different things in life, and then you find the overlap between things that you are good at and things that provide value to the world, right? And ideally, things that you like to. I guess when I say good, my assumption is that you also like it. So things you like, things you're good at, and things that provide value to the world. And so once you find an intersection, then you develop your skills in that intersection over and over and over again. You keep working until you find your specific niche. Like for me right now, and that purpose can change over your life. For me, it started with making my friends laugh, and I was really good at that. So I made the world laugh, and I got a lot of rewards for that. And because part of that was writing books, I got to be an expert in books and publishing, and I know everything basically there is to know about books and publishing and the business and writing and all that sort of stuff. And so once I kind of ran out of things that I wanted to write about, I started focusing on how do I help other people get their ideas out of their heads into books. And so all I've done essentially is it started with one thing I liked, making my friends laugh, and I got good at that. And that became making other people laugh. And I got good at that. And I did it through writing. And then you see how the chain just kind of builds and builds and builds. Yeah. And at each step, man, I was working hard and I was developing skills at each step. Like making your friends laugh is about being funny. Making other people laugh is about learning how to write in a way that's funny, which is not the same as being funny in person. So I had to develop those skills. And then learning the publishing business is totally different than being funny or writing. You know, so at this point in my life, I'm probably a world-class expert at maybe one thing, maybe two, and I'm probably top 10%. So I'm really good at probably 2 other things, and then I'm probably decent at like 5 things, right?
Yeah, that's great.
That's a massive skill stack of 8 to 10 skills that I can put together on almost anything. And then at that point, I just find things that I like and that I want to do and that are meaningful to me, and I go do them, you know? So if you're 20 or 22 or 25, that's the best thing you can do is pick one thing and get awesome at it, even if it's tiny, and then let that take you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And you're going to look up in 10 years and you're going to have a stack of skills that are really valuable and really hard to replicate. And they're going to allow you to do whatever it is that you find meaning in.
Yeah, I noticed in there, like at every aspect, every stage, you were working really hard. And it took a considerable amount of time. I didn't hear anything in there. It was like, it took 2 months to get good at this and 3 months here. And then there you go. Like, I'm trying to say, like, we often want it quick, instant gratification. And I think for anyone that's achieved something great, there's a lot of time spent.
So I hear a lot of people talk about that. Well, you get two sides. So you get the people trying to sell the quick fix, which you're right, never ever works, right? And then you get the other people who are saying, oh yeah, quick fixes don't work. So that means that you have to suffer for a long time and do all this work.
Right.
And I actually don't think that's exactly true either. I think that there's a better middle way. Here's how I think about it is, you're right. Greatness definitely does not come overnight, and that takes a lot of work. But if you do it right, a lot of times the work can be really fun. You know? So it was really fun for me to learn how to become funny, you know, to like make my friends laugh. That basically entailed going out and drinking with my friends and picking up girls and acting stupid. So that was a ton of fun. And now, look, it took a long time to be funny. Like, I wasn't funny in high school that much. I kind of developed, and I don't even know that much in college. It really kind of developed in law school, for me at least. I mean, I was okay funny, but I wasn't that funny. And then, like, but it took time, but I had fun doing it. And then writing for me was really fun because I loved getting feedback from people I didn't know about how much they love my stories, right? So the process was long, and it was a lot of hard work, but there were a lot of intermittent rewards. You know, what I see is a lot of people who say, oh, I want to be a writer. And it's like, okay, show me your writing. Like, I don't really do that much writing. It's like, you don't want to be a writer then, because being a writer is mostly writing. What that person actually wants is they want the status of writer.
Right.
You know, so what you need to do is that's why finding a job, not only that you're good at, but that you like is so important, or an activity, because you'll enjoy the day-to-day tasks of it, which will make the years go by fast that it takes to become a master at something.
Yeah. People will often ask you, like, you'll start something, you'll do it. And then people will ask you, like, how'd you get so good? And you won't even realize, like, that you're good. You're like, oh, I was just doing my thing.
No, it's true, man. I was just having fun, man. I was just doing stuff that was, I mean, a great example now, man, are like esports. You know, like esports has become this huge industry.
You're doing video games, like online, online gaming.
Okay. Right. Well, not just online gaming, but actual esports as a sport. Like, I mean, dude, the guys that have like the serious League of Legends teams and stuff are worth like millions of dollars. That's become a huge thing. And everyone's like, oh yeah, you're wasting your time playing video games, you're so stupid, whatever. First off, esports are huge, but even beyond that, do you realize the video game industry as a whole is bigger than Hollywood? There's more money in video games than in Hollywood.
Wow.
So if you become a great gamer and you understand games, like how to tell stories, how to whatever it is that makes games good versus not good, then you can learn how to be a great gamer, learn how to build games, and then all of a sudden you're building games for other people. You know, It's a great example of how to stack skills on top of each other.
Absolutely. Especially with VR coming out. I think that's only going to grow. I think it might outdo real sports.
So huge. No doubt.
What would you say was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
My own arrogance. And my own hubris. Hubris is like a Greek term that's kind of bigger than arrogance. It's like, it sort of translates to thinking you know everything. I definitely, when I was the iconic example of the person who knows nothing but thinks he knows everything. Even in my like late 20s, like when I was writing all these funny stories, I was good at two things. I was good at going out with my friends and having a blast and then writing about it. But because I was good at those two things, I thought I was great at everything. And I wasn't. I was fucking terrible at most things. And I didn't realize it. I had no humility at all. And it took me a long time and a lot of failures to learn humility. And if I had more humility earlier, I think listen, I've done a lot. I've succeeded in my life, but I could have succeeded a lot more and done a lot more.
Yeah. I'm like looking at your Amazon profile and I could see just kind of you could see the growth in yourself. It's great. And I think it's adding so much value here just by you sharing the story. Like, you are the message here. So this is the Knowledge for Men show. Like, what do you think are some of the characteristics that make a strong, grounded man?
Oh, man. It goes back to the first things, man. If you really understand the two things that matter in life, relationships and your work, and I don't necessarily mean your job, I mean the work that you do that matters, then you can build a great life from that. And that means Here's honestly, I think what it boils down to, and what I'm about to say, I think you could probably apply to women too, but what I see for most guys that they really need to do a better job of is they need to take more responsibility for their lives, right? That's, to me, what, if you really look at great men versus not great men, if you really boil it down, the one thing that all great men do is they take responsibility for themselves and for the people they care about, right? And then good men take responsibility at least for themselves, and bad men don't. And I think if you really start with that process, what do I want? How do I build my life to get it? And then how do I create relationships around me that matter? And how do I do work that matters? And take responsibility for all that, for creating all that, then you're going to have a great life and you're going to be a great man, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Well said. And actually creating that and then doing it and then going through that journey.
Responsibility, to me, that you can't take responsibility without having action. You know,
it's like, a part of it. Okay.
They go hand in hand to me. Yeah.
Got it. What would you say are 2 or 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey?
Oh man, there's so many. That's like the problem. It's hard to say, man.
Do you read? Like, do you read a lot of nonfiction or like?
Yeah, dude. Okay. I have 3,000 books in my house.
Like nonfiction books? Okay, so some guys they just read the fiction stuff and.
No, dude.
Okay, so you got a library behind you.
A deep reader my whole life.
That's great.
All right, if I have to pick one right now, the ones that stand the most tall in my mind are a book called The Trauma of Everyday Life.
Okay. Which
is a psychoanalysis of the Buddha. It's probably way too deep and way too complicated for most people. I would not recommend that. But if you,
okay,
it was really good for me. If you really want to learn about meditation and you want to learn about understanding yourself, I think a great book that's really simple, sort of starter kit for most people is this book called 10% Happier by Dan Harris. He was like a news anchor and he had this panic attack and then he kind of dove into why and he got into meditation and it's a really sort of actionable, no bullshit, no nonsense introduction to Buddhism and meditation and all that stuff. And if you like that book, you're going to really, it'll take you a long way. That's why he calls it 10% Happier. He says like meditation makes you 10% happier, which I think it actually does a lot more, but it kind of depends on the person. And then what else have I been reading a lot? I'll tell you, there's a book called Plain Talk by this guy, Ken Iverson. He ran this steel company called Nucor, which is basically, the American steel business totally cratered in the second half of the 20th century. And Nucor not only survived, but thrived. And because I'm building a company, like we have 14 full-time people and 100 freelancers, and we're going to be twice the size in a year. And this guy, like you hear about a lot of CEOs like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and whatever, and a lot of those guys I actually know, or I at least know people that know them very well, and they're very smart, but a lot of them are actually very poor leaders. Ken Iverson was the opposite. He and this guy called Andy Grove, who wrote a book called High Output Management and a couple other books, are probably the two, I don't want to say they're the two best, but they are two of the best leaders in the 20th century. And I think their styles are going to work really well in the 21st century, where a lot of people who succeed in the 20th century won't work well going forward. Like Jack Welch and people like that, they're just assholes. And not in a funny, cool way. They're just dicks,
Hey, really good books. Haven't heard of those. Like usually I hear the books. I know what the books are. I read a ton of books as well. But those are books I have not, like of the 270 episodes, no one's mentioned either one of those books.
Well, there you go. Plain Talk, man, if you're starting a business or you're being serious, Plain Talk is a great place to start. Or any of Andy Grove's stuff. High Output Management or Across the Sea, those are really good. And 10% Happier is good, man. Like if you're interested in all in meditation or anything like that, if you want a really no-nonsense functional introduction to sort of Eastern philosophy in a way that a real person will understand, I would highly recommend those. Any of those, sir.
Really good. And last question here in the knowledge round. If you had 60 seconds with your 25-year-old self, if you can envision what he's doing, what he's up to personally, professionally.
I'd probably kick his ass. 16 you said, or 60?
25.
Oh, 25. Yeah, my 25-year-old self needed a good ass kicking. No, here's what's crazy, dude. My 25-year-old self I would have told him all kinds of the same things we just talked about in the last hour, and he would not have listened. When you asked what was my fault, it was that I had too much hubris. And I was too arrogant, man. And I would not have listened. That's the problem, is I wouldn't have listened. And I don't know, what do you say to someone who just won't listen to you?
You have to put them in a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Put them out. That's what I would have had to do.
All right. All right. And so that's going to conclude the knowledge round there. Just put them in the rear naked choke, the good old RNC. And now, what's getting you out of bed today? Just interested in kind of what you're looking forward to. Sounds like you're gearing up for something big here in the next year. So like, what's getting you out of bed? What's exciting in this year?
Dude, right now for me, the big thing is, I love my company and my family, dude. There's just not much else that really matters, at least for me.
So you have kids?
Yeah, I have a son, Bishop, who's 19 months old, and I have my wife, obviously, and she's actually pregnant again too. Okay. So I got another one on the way.
Wow, congratulations! That's amazing. Yeah. And it's cool that you shared that story too, of how you guys met and all that. I think it just adds some oomph to knowing that you have kids and stuff. Really cool to see that.
Yep, it's been very cool. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Tucker, thank you so much for being on the show here, sharing your stories, funny stories at that. And then a lot of the lessons, like really deep. This has been a really good episode. I can't wait to share it with my audience here.
Cool, man. Happy to help, dude.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.